All right, guys, thanks for joining us today. I'm John Hendricks, Boot Crew Media. I'm joined alongside of Adam Petrus. He is actually, I'm sorry, Adam Petrus. Look at me, I'm already
Yes.
butchering it. See,
It,
and I asked you before this, so this is how it goes, man. So sometimes he's of Zebra Sports,
that's
man. Look,
right.
hey, this is hilarious.
It's a
But
tongue
anyway,
twister
we
to
had
get
a good.
started. That's
Adam
great.
Petrus of Zebra Sports has joined us today, and we definitely want to thank him for his time. But look, I appreciate you joining, and for those who don't know anything about Zebra Sports, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about you and about what you kind of do, and then we'll get into some of the Saint stuff that we'll want to dive in.
Fantastic. Yeah. Well, hey, John, thanks for having me. Great to be on your show and talking to the Saints Nation that's out there. I think it's going to be an exciting year. Certainly, new start for the Saints with a new head coach. You've got some great draft picks that we'll talk about here today. So Zebra, as my English colleagues like to say. Um, we have been a partner of the NFL as well as a partner of the Saints, dating back to 2014. So, if you're familiar with Next Gen Stats, then you have some awareness of what Zebra Technologies, Zebra Sports delivers and brings to the game of football and player tracking. So, Zebra is the partner of the NFL. We are the official on-field player tracking provider for Next Gen Stats. And so, what we have done is we have taken RFID tags, and I've got one here for the video podcast here that has a zebra logo on it there. And these are embedded into the shoulder pads of all the players. So the entire roster of the NFL team for every team, so all 32 clubs wear RFID tags, and the stadiums have been outfitted with RFID technology so that we can capture every single play of every single game, every Sunday, Thursday night, Saturday, Sunday, playoff scheme, you name it. We've been doing that since 2014. We are going into our ninth season with the NFL. And out of that, you certainly have now been able to create the next generation of statistics. So it's been an awesome relationship with the NFL. We're excited for this year. And as I mentioned with the Saints, Sean Payton being the innovator that he was, he and the Saints were one of the first clubs to sign on as Zebra became the official partner of the NFL to actually hire Zebra to be the practice solution player tracking provider for the Saints, where we have your indoor and your outdoor fields configured so that we can monitor the practice performance, the player load, if you will, and all the data analytics aspects that the team will want to collect from a week by week, day by day practice standpoint.
Wow, that's pretty incredible. And I mean, obviously, I'm there covering this team in practice and stuff, and I don't know if I really have kind of appreciated or just kind of even thought about that with all the metrics and stuff. I knew the Saints are a team that use the analytics and use those types of metrics, and it seems like it's becoming a growing thing. What's like again, without getting too specific, what's kind of the data that they would use normally to help make specific decisions and
Sure.
such?
And that's a great question, right? So we've become, it's a digital world, right, John? Everything is now digital and quantifiable. And so the teams now, every NFL team now has a director of sports science or a director of player performance, and they then work with the nutritionist, and they're working with a sleep doctor, right? And there's so many things that come together, and so player tracking is one aspect and element of a quantifiable tool that the teams will bring to the table. But certainly, let's go back to when you and I were athletes or your audience, right? And if you're in high school or if you're in college and the coach says, hey, we're going to have a hard practice today. Well, what did that really mean, right? Like, how did you judge a hard practice? Was it based on how many gassers you did? Were you tracking how many yards or miles that you might have traveled during the course of the practice? How many water breaks you did or you didn't get? So a hard practice now can actually be quantifiable in the sense of how many reps is your quarterback throwing the ball? What's the distance traveled of your running backs, of your wide receivers, defensive backs? How many reps are they doing backpedaling versus running forward? How many times am I lining up your number one receiver on the left versus the right, and I'm having him either cut on his left knee or his right knee, right? So you can start looking at some of these things and you start to generate a player load. Like, how much load are we putting on the body? So that if you do have a hard practice, let's say on Wednesday, then you look at not only from a team aggregate, but also an individual basis. And you can look at your depth charts and say, look, yeah, we put a lot of miles, or, for example, you know, Taysom Hill, he put on a lot of yards yesterday in practice. We need to make sure we monitor. And we saw that his fastest rate of speed was 90% of his max speed. So in Thursday's practice, we're going to come out and we're going to talk to each individual athlete, and we're going to say, look, in today's practice, I want you to go 75%. And a player, you talk to a player, they know what their 75% is, right? They know what 100 is. They know when they can let up off the gas and sustain. And I can tell you from personal, and you're there at practices, players aren't practicing in shoulder pads, but maybe what, once a week, based off of, agreements with the NFL. So the contact and things like that, they're going to look at that. But at the end of the day, you're now quantifying almost every, aspect from fast twitch muscles, acceleration off the line, how long does it take to achieve max speed, and taper their performance so that you get them optimal for either Thursday night or Sunday night or Monday night football.
Yeah, I think I find it interesting because the Saints added Matt Rhea this offseason. Actually,
Yes.
they're one of the teams, and he was huge in Alabama. And I think what you hit was one of the things he explained to me, and just kind of how he does is, they could say, here's a player we know he's nursing, or he has a left leg injury. We can kind of tailor workouts to help him strengthen that left leg if it's something that's going on and stuff. So like it's I don't want to say the Saints are one of the last teams to get onto that bandwagon with the sports science, but I feel like with them going the direction and getting somebody smart like him coupled with this technology is only going to make them better, because I think one of the things that I noticed about Rhea at Alabama is they were able to reduce a lot of the core muscle injuries and the core muscle problems that were flaring up because of them using the sports science to their advantage.
That's right. And Alabama was using player tracking system. And so
Mm.
this is a great opportunity to talk about our technology uses RFID. So that's radio frequency identification. So we set up these stadiums with these devices. And then of course that tag that I mentioned. What's so awesome about this tag and for the NFL is that it only weighs a few ounces. It's got a microchip in here that transmits, and so it also has a battery, and so it's really packed tight, and this tag will last an entire year, and it gets embedded underneath the top epaulet of the shoulder pads. But what's great is the players don't even know it's there, so you're never impeding performance, right? And it's only a few ounces. They get hit in the epaulet, they're never going to feel it on the shoulder, so nobody gets injured. And it's not a big bulky device that either has to be on the exterior, so it's great for allowing the performance to happen, very organically and naturally. And then so there's GPS based, which typically requires a little bit larger of a device. And there's a handful of colleges and universities that wear a GPS based system. And then there's a handful of Ohio, or rather, there's a handful of clubs in the college levels that utilize our system. But it goes to your point. The other important aspect is when you have data from an athlete while they were healthy, and then they do get injured, and then they start to come back, and then that player says, hey coach, I'm ready to go, I'm 100%. And they start looking at the data and say, no, your initial speed off the line for the first 3 yards is not where it was when you were 100%. So let's keep on rehabilitating. Let's keep on getting the reps in, and we're going to know when you're 100%. So it's a nice aspect of, we know the players are hungry. They want to get back out in the field. They want to deliver for the team. But the smart players, I will also say, um, if they embrace the player tracking and the aspects of the data analytics, they can actually extend their career, John. Now, of course, there's always things that can happen, but think about it. They're fine tuned. Formula One was just here in Miami not too long ago where I am, and I'm a big fan of motorsports. And those vehicles take extreme amount of maintenance and care and doing all the things right. Same thing with an NFL player. But if they get the right amount of sleep and the diet, and they listen to the player tracking sports performance, and they really condition their bodies so that they get optimal performance on Sunday, and they're not beating themselves up every day of the week. The old Herschel Walker, doing push-ups at night and everything else. they will extend their career. And I think that is something you're going to see more and more as a value, and what is being brought to the table now with some of the new additions on your staff is embracing fully and truly maximizing the potential of the players, as well as the schema to get the players in shape so that they can sustain, a full 4 quarters, if not overtime, to outplay their opponents.
Yeah, it's something. And you talked about putting them in the shoulder pads. It just reminds me of like the '80s and '90s when their shoulder pads are like up to
Oh,
here and stuff.
jeez.
I was like, I
Right.
don't know, they might feel it back then, but it's crazy how much technology and just evolution of the game is really done. And speaking of, you guys were at the Senior Bowl, right? And
Yes, we
obviously,
sure
y'all had a
were.
lot of data that was provided. And specifically, we could talk about the Saints draft picks. Obviously, they had a few that were there, like Trevor Penning was there,
Yes.
and a bunch of those. How would, and I guess that's another thing is, let's start with Trevor Penning, but in general, just your kind of work at the Senior Bowl, what metrics would they use on an offensive lineman to study and just put together for something like that?
Yeah, so and it's a great question, right? Because you look at linemen and you're like, all right, well, what are we really looking at here? And certainly the performance on the field is, can he block, or can he beat the pass rush if he's defensive line? But certainly Trevor Penning is an impressive athlete with a- awesome athleticism. So I had the pleasure of being down there in Mobile, not too far from your neck of the woods. And interesting fact is, everybody in Mobile tried to tell me that Mardi Gras started in Mobile and that New
It
Orleans
did.
stole it. So I don't know if that's a thing, but they were claiming that to be true.
I
um,
mean, yeah.
I will. Okay. All right. So hey, I will say Mobile is a really cool town, and
Yeah,
I love what they're doing
absolutely.
with the Senior Bowl. In the sense that Zebra has been at the Senior Bowl now since 2018. So just like Next Gen Stats, we're collecting this body of work, if you will, from year in and year out. And when you talk about the Senior Bowl, what's really cool is that this year 106 players from the Senior Bowl were drafted into the NFL out of a total of 262 picks.
Crazy.
That's 40% of the athletes that are in the Senior Bowl. Um, Rather, Senior Bowl is making up 40% of the larger draft pool, which is really cool. And so, Zebra, for the first year, we also did the East West Shrine game. And then next year, I'm happy to announce that we are also going to be tracking the HBCU Legacy Bowl.
Ooh,
So
that's
we're going to be
awesome.
tracking all
Goodness.
three All-Star games, which is going to be really exciting. And that'll also be right in your backyard, which will be
Yeah.
a lot of
Yeah.
fun for you guys. So going back to the Senior Bowl, that's a great week, and we were tracking all the practices, and then of course the games. So what's cool about like Trevor Penning and the other offensive linemen that are out there is you're looking at some things. For example, certainly max acceleration. Their ability to sustain their max speed, and we know about Trevor the fact that he is, amongst the offensive linemen, he is really fast at 6'7", 325 pounds, right? Um, and so when I go back to, the Senior Bowl, he was also voted the Offensive Lineman of the Week, which is an extreme honor to tell you the type of character and the leader that he was. So take all of those things out of it, but his max speed is 15.12 miles per hour, which is a record during the team period on Wednesday at the Senior Bowl. He was second fastest among all offensive linemen in 2022. So from the larger stats, the guy is a beast, right? And so you want to look at his reaction time from the ball snap. That's an important metric. You want to look at that max speed and acceleration. So if he ends up pulling, or he needs to be somewhere to make a block,
Adam, I think we froze.
in your arsenal.
Nice, awesome, good deal. And again, you look at some of the other things on there too. I mean, they picked up Alante Taylor, a corner. They also picked up Demarco Jackson, a linebacker. I think, and here's the other thing I have. So when you're, and because one of the things I love watching when it comes to corners is the one-on-one drills, and I think that's just
Yes.
so fun to watch. But even real time, like when they're doing scrimmages or when they're doing plays, how fast does that data come in? First of all, and then talk about Taylor as a corner and just kind of the things and metrics that you would use at a corner? I mean, other than obviously speed, maybe acceleration, or what the types of things that you would see from the Zebra technology?
Yeah. Another great question. And so, what's cool about RFID is that our our technology is considered real-time location services. So as we were sitting up in the press box, or I was streaming on Wi-Fi, I was looking at the Senior Bowl player dashboard, and I was getting that information live. So we're talking as it occurred, real-time location services. We're watching it live. So and that's what's so neat about our NFL practice solution. So when you're the director of sports science, you can be on the field and you can look at that athlete's exertion. And there's some really cool stories that we've seen. And even for the Senior Bowl, is as I was on the sidelines and there'd be a GM or a scout would come up and I would say, hey, Alante Taylor, max speed on that last during that last session, 21.12 miles per hour. And that is NFL speed. When you get
Yeah.
somebody who with shoulder pads on, by the way, like this is playing speed, which is really something important to note. Especially college kids, they're hungry, and the Senior Bowl is a great opportunity to demonstrate their skill sets. So when Alante turned some heads because of the fact he's an incredibly athletic young man, but also that comes with great height at 6 foot for a cornerback, but also um, it's that playing speed. When you're going 21.12 miles per hour with shoulder pads on and making real moves, that gets people's attention because we also call that, catch up speed. When you're getting over 21 miles per hour in the NFL, that means that you have the ability to track somebody down, whether or not it's a running back or another receiver. And that's a key aspect. And certainly I can see why he got picked up in the second round. So speed is definitely important. Their ability, how long they can sustain that acceleration, and then how long does it take them to get to max speed. You want to do all that sort of thing. Some of the other things that you would look at is even their backpedal ability. How fast can they backpedal and then turn direction, go from north to south and then east or west? That is actually a really cool metric that has to get broken down a bit further by the data scientists. But when we're looking at the John, it's really cool to be able to see the difference in somebody's ability to go from 0 to 21.7 miles per hour and then change direction. So those are the sorts of things that coaches, GMs, and scouts would be looking at.
Yeah, and so the other part of it is with this data, and I guess just hypothetical, because I mean every team should be represented at the Senior Bowl, but even as they keep doing the research on these prospects and stuff, do you ever have teams that are like, "Hey, can you send me this data?" Or is it just one of those things where they're like, "I just need this mountain of data, like from a college game." Like, and I think that's advantageous if a college program has Zebra in their building. You can easily find out way more data than you need to, right?
Yeah, I mean, we live in this digital world, right, where the really smart teams are investing in the data analytics team. And don't get me wrong, right? There are strong-minded football coaches um, that are, let's say, old school, right? Those exist. However, um, there's the old joke or the old adage is there's two types of coaches and GMs. There's those that subscribe to player tracking and data analytics, and then there's former coaches and GMs. Because in today's NFL, you have to recognize that it is part of the larger toolbox. And so there's a lot of gut feeling, but we always say the data doesn't lie, right? So if you're evaluating somebody in practice or over the course of a game, yes, in the college level, if I was a college athlete, I would absolutely be embracing the tracking data. If I'm putting the time in, it's going to tell that story. And as we see even in the NFL, players that are going to renegotiate contracts, if they pull all their game day data from Next Gen Stats, or they get their own practice data from the club and they package that up and say, look, I'm a top five, cover cornerback. Look at I'm in the top 3% of speed. I'm in changing direction, in reaction time to the ball. These are all the things that are going to help propel them for, a longer or, more money in their pockets.
Yeah, I think that's when because everybody likes to have fun when it's NFL draft season, mock draft season. You talk about it, and I always say that the teams' boards matter most, obviously, more than what everybody else ranks them. And that's interesting you bring that up because I think they can use metrics like that and say, okay, I can grade this player higher because of things that we have when we compare them to other prospects. And obviously, they have visions for the players and stuff. And I think that's a huge thing with what they got with Alante Taylor in the second round. And they took a linebacker, DeMarco Jackson, fourth round, App State. Man, just kind of what were some of the impressions that you saw from him at the Senior Bowl, and just kind of some of the data that may have turned the Saints on to him?
Yeah, so look, 6'1", 233 pounds. He runs max speed at 18.9 miles per hour. He's got an acceleration, max acceleration at 5.49 yards, so almost 5.5 yards. He can sustain his max speed. In the NFL, that is you don't see much further than that, especially amongst linebackers. So I would say that he's got good reaction time, and his fast accelerations. In the facts in we talk about fast acceleration. It's kind of the fast twitch muscle where he can be standing idle and then get into a max acceleration, basically a really short amount of time. So I think, and that he could move and he was agile around the football field. And so I think those are the things that they were looking at when they picked him up.
Nice. Okay, so I'm gonna leave you some with some hypothetical, and so
Okay.
in the past, 20, 30 years, maybe, if you had zebra technology, which player do you think would have maybe tested off the charts with some of their data that they had?
Oh man, I love that question. And what would have been awesome would have been to be tracking Bo Jackson back
Mm,
in the day, right? Because
yep.
not only he's the dude was playing baseball and football, right? And I believe if you look at some of his metrics where he was performing on the baseball field and then turned around and then was running 233-yard carries. He had yards carried in a game. I would love to have seen his acceleration rate. I would have loved to have seen his sustained max acceleration. I believe Bo Jackson was one of those athletes that would have been awesome to see where he would compare with today's athlete. And this goes back to kind of your last point you were making. I just wanted to tie it in. What's cool now that we've been doing the Senior Bowl since 2018, and then of course the Next Gen Stats program since 2014, is just think about the mountain of data that a team does. So the smart ones, the ones that really buy into the data analytics and getting the most for your value when it comes to the dollars and cents or draft picks, is being able to look at comparables in the NFL now and then taking either that Senior Bowl data or that senior year in college data and saying where are they, and then just like back to 2018, what was the players in 2018 at the Senior Bowl doing compared to where we are now. And what I found, which is really interesting, John, is that players in 2022 Senior Bowl were blowing away the top speeds for the last 3 seasons. I mean, I think we broke a couple different records on offense and defense for fastest players on the football field. And I think that just goes to the world of sports science that these kids are coming up in, from where high schools are using tracking data. They're looking more at nutrition, the wearable technology, the sleep. I mean, there's so many different things that now get analyzed within that health and wellness aspect of a player's digital profile. And those are all the things that even a high school kid can start now, tracking their sleep, tracking what they eat, tracking their workouts, even when they're just working out in the gym or if they're going for a jog. These are all things that can get compiled and really build that digital footprint. What's cool is when they look back year after year, they can see how they improve or where they're decreasing. And so
Nice.
they can retool their workout system.
Very cool. Well, Adam, I definitely appreciate you joining us today. Adam Petrus of Zebra Sports. If you haven't checked them out already, why don't you tell everybody if they want to learn more about Zebra and just kind of get in? Because I tell you that they go on NFL Next Gen. Some of the stuff is probably not going to make a lot of sense to them and stuff, but maybe some good resources and just kind of talk about a few
Yeah.
things, what you guys got coming up for the new year.
Sure. Yeah. So I definitely recommend, if you haven't been to Next Gen Stats before, definitely check that out. You can find that on the web through nextgenstats.com or go through NFL.com, and you'll be able to navigate. So Next Gen Stats has their own team, and they do tell some really cool stories. I highly recommend it. And then be watching out for the broadcast this year between Monday night, Sunday night, Sunday primetime football games. You're going to see the broadcast tie in with our system, and they're going to put the speedometer under the players, or they're going to show you some really neat hot zone passing charts from the quarterback standpoint. Zebra Technologies, for the folks out there that are passionate about sports and technology, that's the world that I live in, and it's fascinating to see how technology can impact today's game. So if you're interested in sports and technology, come look at us at Zebra Technologies. You can find us at www.zebra.com. or zebratechnologies.com. And we're a global leader in RFID technology. And what's really cool, John, is probably all of your listeners have come across us and never even knew it as part of your daily life. When you get a package delivered at your doorstep, with 2-day delivery, typically the handheld device that takes that picture and sends the email that your package arrived, Zebra builds that device. The
Hmm.
same thing at your favorite big box store with a red shirt. You're looking for something on the shelf and it's not there, and you find an associate. They use a handheld mobile computer device that we build as part of their inventory management system. So we take a lot of pride in the fact that we touch the world of sports, but we also deliver an impact and a performance edge to everyday consumers here and around the world, to include my colleagues in England working for Zebra.
Yeah, man, I that's pretty awesome, amazing just how far technology has gone. When Adam, man, I can't thank you enough for joining us today. I'm sure we'll touch base again. But again, Adam Petrus of Zebra Sports, not Zebra, but Zebra, depending on where you're going. We're going to London this year for the Saints, so we're going to be
Yes,
talking some Zebra too. So
you will be, and maybe I'll see you there. And John, make
yeah,
sure I'll see you on the road this year. I'll see you back at the Senior Bowl next year, and hopefully, right in your back door, I'll see you at the HBCU game as well.
yes, sir. Good deal, man. Appreciate all the time. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Hey, thanks for having me. Cheers.
Cheers.